Hello, world. Welcome to episode 125 of the Jimmy Canz Show. It's a classic supercard retrospective. Again, WrestleMania 7. Um, yep, we are at that one. Before I really get going with this retro, I just want to say that this was the mania of many logos. What you see on screen right now is what was used on all the promotional material leading up to the event for pretty much an entire year. But then, when we got to the actual event itself, what you see right now on the left side of the screen is what was used during the event for all of the on-screen digital graphics, as well as the backstage interview area signage. This red, white, and blue version of the logo, predominantly white and blue with kind of a red, for lack of a better term, drop shadow on it. And then what you see now on the other side of the screen, this red and white version, this is what was used on all the in-arena signage, banners, ring aprons, etc., etc. And then now what you see down at the bottom middle of the screen, this red, white, and blue version with the white and then black outlining is what was used on the VHS packaging of the event. So, what the WrestleMania 7 logo really was, what they consider to be the official logo, I don't know. You see, like I said, it was all over the place. Anyway, it was held on March 24th, 1991. Obviously, it's a WWF event. It was in Los Angeles, California, at the Los Angeles Sports Arena. 16,158 in attendance, which was pretty much a sellout for that arena, but it was a far cry from the planned 90+ thousand that they really wanted to fill up the LA Memorial Coliseum. Which is why they had to move venues. Their PR stated that they moved it due to security worries. This was coming off of the Gulf War, so they spun it into a security concern. But it was just due to poor ticket sales that they had to move across the street to the much smaller arena from the actual stadium. This was broadcast live on pay-per-view, later released on VHS, courtesy of Coliseum Video. Majority of the action called by Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan, but there were some others that filled in for a few matches here and there when Heenan had to be at ringside to manage, mainly. And then that was Hacksaw and Lord Alfred Hayes filled in for those two matches. And then Regis Philbin joined them in the booth to help call the main event. It's a 14-match card, pretty big card, but it is a Mania. So before we get into the matches, we got to talk about the additions of the celebrity involvement. I've already mentioned Regis, doing some commentary. He wasn't the only one there. In addition to helping call the main event, Regis Philbin also did some interviews backstage, as did Marlo Maples and Alex Trebek. Not only did Trebek do some of the interviews backstage, but he's also the ring announcer for the main event, and Maples was announced as the guest timekeeper. I don't know really what a guest timekeeper really does. They just kind of show up and sit at ringside. And then Willie Nelson kicked off the night performing America the Beautiful. And then also with this being in Los Angeles, there were many high-profile celebrities in the crowd that you see on and off throughout the night. The camera just cutting to them in the crowd. So let's talk about the matches. All right. It's our second WWF pay-per-view of 1991 in a row, kicked off by the Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, but this time they are facing the future Faces of Fear in the form of Haku and the Barbarian, managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. A great warm-up match for the crowd, very solid spots throughout. Goes about 10 minutes in length. The Rockers get the win after a rope drop kick by Jannetty is followed up by a top rope crossbody by Michaels for the 3 count. And as I mentioned, Heenan at ringside with his guys, so Hacksaw was out there calling the action with Monsoon. Texas Tornado took on the Canadian Strongman Dino Bravo with the Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart out there with him. Tornado won, but it's clear, from the amount of time given for this match and the fact that it's, so early in the card that, Vince is pretty much kind of checked out on both these two individuals at this point. Neither one was really around in the Fed much longer after this. Third match of the evening, we get the Power Slam battle. Because, who has the better running Power Slam was, in this one, Bulldog Warlord is pretty much what this contest was built around. There's really no other story in this one other than, who had the better Power Slam. 3 matches, and this is our third babyface win, as Bulldog does get the win. In terms of just, booking 101, you've had 3 matches, 3 babyface wins. This did bode well for the 4th combatants in this one. If they're a babyface, you can't have all babyface winners. And what the 4th match was, it's the tag team title match. Hart Foundation, Bret the Hitman Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart defending the World Tag Team Championships against the Mouth of the South's newest tandem of Jerry Saggs and Brian Knobbs, the Nasty Boys. Hart, being the former manager of the foundation, says he's told the Nasties all their weaknesses. But, what the real weakness was here was the airbrush motorcycle helmet worn by Jimmy Hart out to the ring. Hebner was getting Bret out of the ring. The quote-unquote kind of distraction, just trying to chew the Hitman out, allowed, and this was after they had the heart attack, this allowed Jimmy to toss the helmet in, and Saggs, cracked Anvil right in the back with the motorcycle helmet, knocking him cold, and allowing Knobbs to roll over and get the cover and 3 count. So there you have it. We have new tag team champions in the form of the Nasty Boys. The blindfold match between Jake the Snake Roberts and Rick the Model Martel was next. The story build on this one, months and months and months leading up to this payoff. Story was done really well building to this, and then the actual payoff kind of got blown just moments before the bell rang. Why I say it? Well, it was blown for the home audience. Let's put it that way, not so much for the live crowd. And let me explain why. What happened was Jake, after they put the blindfold hood on him, he reached under it to kind of adjust it, right as the camera, was in tight on his head, and you could see his hand through the hood, thus allowing the home audience to realize that you could see through those hoods. So the whole concept of the match and everything was blown for the home audience at that point. The live crowd obviously couldn't see that well, and it was done really, the match was done really well. If you kind of ignore that, and look at it as the live audience did, Jake played with the crowd so well for this match, just kind of pointing around the ring, listening to the crowd reaction, and the crowd would cheer when he would be pointing at Martel. So he's like, oh, okay, so that's where I need to go. So the storytelling, this was really well done. I mean, these are 2 great workers that could really tell stories in the ring. Jake does get the win via the DDT in this one, and gets his redemption on Martel. But like I said, the home audience, it was a little spoiled a little bit for the home audience. But, it's still a pretty solid match. good payoff to the story. Next up, Phenom versus Future Phenom. Superfly Jimmy Snuka clashes with The Undertaker, now managed by Paul Bearer. It's a little under 4.5 minute mark. We get a tombstone and a 1-2-3, and little did we know that the streak was now born. He's 1-0. Less than a year after his debut, and the Mania streak is off and running, but wasn't planned, just kind of happened. Probably the most well-done match of the evening right here, at least from a story standpoint. The career versus career retirement matchup, done so well. The Ultimate Warrior going against the Macho King Randy Savage. Yeah! It's sensational Queen Sherry in his corner. Warrior debuting the airbrushed gear for the first time in this one. If nothing else, this is going to be the most colorful match on the card with these two ring gear. Always decked to the nines, these two. Great match, though, at least in terms of story. And the build and the crescendo. I mean, Warrior, ends up getting the win, which set in motion probably the most memorable exchange of the night. As post-match, an irate Sherry, having lost her quote-unquote meal ticket, attacks the beaten and down Savage. Miss Elizabeth, who was in the crowd and shown throughout the match, and really hadn't been seen in a year, jumps the barricade, runs to the ring, jumps in, throws Sherry from the ring. Savage comes to, turns around, sees Liz there. The two embrace and reunite. Crowd ate this up. Late 80s, early 90s cheese, done to perfection. So Savage, quote unquote, loses his career, but walks out, to the adulation of the crowd as he reunites with Liz. Next up, a match that just really actually needed to be done as part of a deal with the Japanese promotion, Super World of Sports. The Japanese duo Koji Katao and Genichiro Tenryu took on Smash and Crush of Demolition, now managed by Mr. Fuji. Vince, at this point, has LOD under contract now, so this was really kind of the end for Demolition. The team wasn't the same, actually, anyway, after Axe got sick. And this loss here to Katao and Tenryu was pretty much it for the duo. Darso, Barry Darso, who played Smash, was repackaged as Repo Man just about 6 months after this. And Brian Adams, who played Crush, departed the company for about a year before re-signing and coming back, still as Crush, but now with a kind of Hawaiian surfer gimmick, complete with the neon colored gear and the sun bleached hair. So not too much to discuss in this one. Next up, Boss Man has finally earned his IC title shot against Mr. Perfect, having defeated all the other members of the Human family, kind of running the gauntlet, so to speak. Although he's ultimately outsmarted here, as Perfect uses the quote-unquote champion's advantage, getting himself disqualified, losing the match, but retaining the title. And then, one thing that I want to make note of here before we move on to the next match is this is our last pay-per-view with Bobby the Brain Heenan as a manager. He gave up managing and became a full-time commentator shortly after WrestleMania 7. So this was the Brain's managerial swan song pay-per-view event. Now, Babyface, Greg the Hammer Valentine, taking on the Earthquake with the Mouth of the South. This is the second match tonight, with Jimmy Hart having one of his current guys face a former one of his guys, and mainly building the match around I know all your weaknesses. Goes hardly over 3 minutes. Quake, not surprisingly, getting the win. They're still trying to portray Quake as the big monster, nasty heel. The newly signed Legion of Doom making their pay-per-view debut. Hawk and Animal taking on Team of Power and Glory, Hercules and Paul Roma with Slick in their corner. This is a total warrior squash. They win with the Doomsday Device in under a minute. Like I said, this was just really done to get them over as the new bullies on the block, so to speak. Virgil finally clashing with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. Years of tension and build to the payoff of Virgil finally having enough at the Rumble led us to this, and it ends with a count out. Virgil, getting it in slightly under 8 minutes, but post-match, DiBiase gets the upper hand. He is then joined by Sherry. The two of them proceed to beat down the baby faces. So it's pretty obvious by the ending of this and everything post-match that we're not done with this yet. Tito Santana up next, taking on the Mountie with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, in his corner. And this is just kind of the breather match before the main event, and just put on the card to get the Mountie character over as a credible heel. This is where Tito's career had taken him at this point. The former two-time IC champion and former multi-time tag champion, doing the honors, so to speak, in quick fashion helped add to the Mountie character's credibility. So, not a very long match. I think, just under 90 seconds, and the Mountie using the heel tactics and the cattle prod to get the win. And this takes us to the main event of the evening for the WWF Championship. Your champion, Sergeant Slaughter, with General Adnan defending against Hulk Hogan. And the build to this shows there's only one way that this match is going to end. I mean, it's the times combined with just, except how this was packaged and put together. Hogan representing the USA were coming out of the ball floor. There was no way that this was going to go any way it does. But however, we have to sit through 20 minutes of pretty lackluster wrestling before we get the Hogan Hulk up, the finger point, the 3 punches, the big boot, the leg drop, and the 1, 2, 3 winner and first ever, I should point out, 3-time WWF champion Hulk Hogan. So it's rating time. So 14 matches, about half had some story. Opening tag was solid, no real story to it. Bravo and Tornado was just a thrown-on match. Bulldog and Warlord had, a little bit of story about the Power Slam thing, but it really wasn't a beefy story. It was enough for an undercard type match, though. But really the feud was just not that invested in at all by the crowd. The tag title match, part of it, it was the Jimmy Hart Foundation ties were the main thing here. But the match in and of itself wasn't all that great, and they're ready to fish with LOD at this point, so you had to get the titles off the babyface Hart Foundation. So Nasty was just kind of a transitional champion here. Spoiler alert. Sorry about that. Then, the Jake Martel feud was so well done, leading to that blindfold match, and then Jake, not on purpose, but kind of killed it just moments before the bell rang for the home audience. But still was decently done. Like I said, the live crowd ate it up. We had the audience participation, throughout that match, which was well done. Taker Snuka, not that great of a match, but it's memorable as it started the streak. We didn't know at the time, but had to be mentioned there. You had a career versus career match. You got Chef's Kiss on that one from a story standpoint. Interpromotional tag, like I said, it was just done to honor some agreements there. IC title, good story build. Getting to that match with Boss Man running the gauntlet through the Heenan family. Let's be honest, it had a shock outcome really for the time. For a babyface to run the gauntlet like that, get his opportunity, and then still come up short. Kind of a little changing of the times in terms of the way they told stories. And I think that was probably the first time that that a babyface came up short after that that long build in the Fed. Valentine Quake, this had nothing going for it other than the Jimmy Hart ties. LOD with the squash win, like I said, done for obvious reason. Obviously, Virgil DiBiase, solid story, but I think it would have been better with Virgil getting an outright win as opposed to a count-out win in that one. In the Mountie, like I said, this was just the breather match for the live crowd before the main. It did what it needed to do in terms of helping build the Mountie character. And then, Hogan and Slaughter delivered in spite of itself, I guess. So 10 belts. It's just a pretty mid-quality Mania, honestly. Certain things help it. The things that hurt it really hurt it. So it was just kind of a middle of the road one. So for that reason, I'll say it's 5 out of 10. So there you have it. Our next classic retrospective will be an interesting one. It will actually be the WCW Japan Super Show. So that should be an interesting one. It was actually a really good card. So when we get into that one, it'll be a fun one to discuss. So as always, give the channel a like, share, subscribe. Take care of one another. And I will see you all when I see you.